the sound check is fast.
Greetings from California, USA. I want to say hello to all my friends, all the doctors across from all over the world. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. My name is Dr. Emily Letran. I'm a regent for the Global Summit Institute. I'm the Dean of the Doctorate of Business Administration program. We're launching that in June 2022. I'm a practicing dentist, been a dentist for almost 3 decades. And this morning I am honored, well, it's still morning here. I'm honored to welcome Dr. Julie Smith, who is a doctor of physical therapy. She is an alignment-based physiotherapist. She is the founder of the Pain Bending Game, where she works with aging athletes to maintain optimal function for as long as possible through education, body awareness, and thought reprogramming. She helps therapists get results for their clients through her Empower Client framework, getting people to do their part at home. She's the founder of Body Effects Physiotherapy Practice in Denver, Colorado, and has been practicing body work for over 25 years. And I've had the pleasure and honor to meet Dr. Julie Smith at an Achieve Summit. And that's why I invited her on here to share her personal story and also share with us the resources that the Achieve Summit can bring to our healthcare providers. Dr. Julie Smith, welcome to the show.
Hi, Dr. Emily. Thanks for having me. I'm glad to be here with you. Hello, everyone from across the world. Glad you could join us, and hopefully you can get something out of this with our discussion here.
No, I'm sure everyone will. I mean, you're coming on and you've been practicing for so many years and you have successful practice. So, you know, I ask this on every interview. Tell us, how did you decide to go into healthcare?
I was one of those little kids who was squeezing people's feet and smiling at them going, "Ooh, this is what I'm going to do when I get big." I didn't have the going from astronaut to firefighter back to princess trajectory. I just knew that I was going to do something to do with bodies and making them feel better. I actually took my first formal studies when I was 12. I talked to my mom out of being upset with me for going through her stuff. I'm 12, so I'm going through her stuff, right? And then into taking a class at the community college, and did a reflexology class first, and then progressed with 8 or 12 classes from that professor, who was wondering why my mom was sitting in the back of the room. My mom was like, "I'm just the transportation." And my mom was wondering what happened to her kid, because I was actually paying attention and doing my homework and all that stuff, and then just kept adding things to it, and all the way till my physical therapy degree.
And so I know that, you know, some of us have what we call a calling, right? And I know you say that you started so young. At which point did you feel that, you know, this is going to be your life work, and how much can you change people's lives with what you do?
I think I really knew as I was going through a reflexology certification. I was 16, so I knew everything and was invincible, right? And didn't really have a concept of the wider world. And I was working as an apprentice reflexologist at the A Foot Connection, which unfortunately went out of business. And there was this homeless lady who came in, and she had come in 4 or 5 times over 6 months, probably, asking how much it was for a foot treatment. And she finally came in this one day, and my rates were less than the mentors, and gave her my rate and took her back and put her in a foot soak and kind of took care of her a little bit, which wasn't part of what she had paid for, but I felt like really she needed it. And gave her treatment, and we gave everybody a clean pair of socks when they came in, because we didn't let them wear shoes inside. And I sent her home with her socks and another pair and gave her her money back. And it was my first real introduction to, I can make a big difference for somebody. And part of it was, just the TLC and actually listening and taking care of her. And part of it was the actual treatment itself. So learning, just how much of a difference little things can make. And then when you have the education and the power and the network behind you, you can take those little things and make bigger ones. That was probably my first aha, yeah, this is what I'm supposed to be doing.
Yeah, all of us have those moments, and then I'm sure as you go on in your journey, 25 plus years, that you have other stories or other times where you realize that you're touching people beyond, you know, what what you think that you're doing in the practice. Because when they go home, maybe they're a better person, right? They're more comfortable, they're a nicer person, or maybe they can do more things, or they can recover more of what they were able to do before, and that give
Mhm.
them their life back, right? The quality of life, sometimes we call it. And we are just so honored to be a little part of that. I know that every one of us oh, I'm so sorry, have a journey of growth, right? At certain time, we know that we can grow and we can do whatever it is beyond our everyday practice. And you're going to be sharing with us a little bit about that very, very soon here, about that journey where you grow. When did you feel that you should be able to grow beyond the four walls of your practice? Because you mentioned also that you have other doctors and therapists grow their business.
Correct. So getting into my kinesiology practice and then into my physical therapy practice, I studied all over the world, and I've been working through different states in the US, and I worked in the UK for a little bit. I studied in Thailand and France, and the growth and the way that different cultures view just medical practitioners in general, no matter what profession it is really interesting. And going to all those different places and working with different types of people was really interesting. When I was in the UK, I worked actually with a large population of Indian people, and their belief systems are a little bit more complex than maybe some of the Western belief systems. And they had to have multiple women in the room with a female patient, and they could only see a female therapist. And but the man actually is the one that makes the decision. And I mean, and sometimes we needed an interpreter, so there was 8 people in the room at once, and all you're doing is trying to assess somebody's knee or something, right? So just working with different cultures, and sometimes the complexity, like that example, made me think I probably needed to add a little bit more education for my own self, and then more network with different practitioners. So psychologists and cultural affairs people, so that I was actually delivering what the person needed and not overstepping cultural boundaries and things like that. And then progressing through even further, expanding my knowledge, and then putting my head together with other practitioners and going, actually, we could create something really cool. So, which is actually kind of a good intro to the Achieve group. Suzanne is a lady that I met through Achieve. I didn't know her before that. And she and I have collaborated to make a internship for massage therapists, so that they can get business skills and practical experience, as well as getting functional anatomy and skills improvement, so that they can extend their careers longer than they might anyway. The average massage therapist, I think, works for 3 years, which is sad. So we've paired up in that, expanding beyond the practice, for both of us. So
Yeah, so I'm glad, because we could just segue right into Achieve there, because I was actually introduced to this support community, I would call it, by my friend Phyllis, and we have been members in different groups before. So she knows what I'm always looking for, right? Which is that community, the people where you can bounce ideas off, the people who can support you, the people who can collaborate with you, the people who can cross promote you, and really it's a whole education system where we can all grow together. So tell us in the Achieve groups, which kind of healthcare and wellness uh, business owners have you come across, and what what do you get out of that when you are in a group where you're in such I would say a plethora of business owners? Everybody may have it may look like we have a totally different interest, right? Because
Sure.
we focusing on, let's say I'm coming in, I'm a dentist and I work on teeth, and then there's a chiropractor who's working on the spine, and and then there's a nurse and etc. um, can you name some of the people who are in the group or professions who are in the group that have helped you grow?
Sure. The Achieve group is actually really interesting, and it's expanded exponentially since I joined about 5 years ago. So it's been fun to see even more professions kind of coming in, and we have some medical doctors and nurses in the in the Western philosophy group. We've got some functional medicine practitioners who and physical therapists who sort of bridge the gap between the two. And then we have our acupuncturists and massage therapists and athletic trainers kind of on the other side. We've got people that are health educators in the martial arts industries, dentists, which is cool, and chiropractors, which kind of round out the whole group. And then as it's been growing, we've had uh, multiple dentists and multiple doctors and multiple PTs and multiple chiropractors who have collaborated to actually create a referral network and brainstorming and accountability and that kind of stuff. And then the community's also expanded to include kind of adjunct people that you need to run your business, whether they're business coaches or printers or accountants, marketing people, that kind of stuff. So it's nice to actually think outside the box a little bit, because there are lots of collaborations that you can do with other professionals in your group. But as we're doing this talk here, Dr. Emily was talking about the fact she's a dentist. I'm a physical therapist, so we're looking at completely different parts of the body, but we can collaborate to actually have this discussion and bring different perspectives to people. And in the same vein, I can collaborate with the martial arts guy to create a cool event, or I can collaborate with some of those adjunct videographers and marketers and that kind of thing, so that we can actually promote the event in a meaningful way. And I know we were kind of discussing this a little bit. Dr. Emily and I actually want to invite everybody to come to the Achieve conference in June. So I'll share a QR code, and if you guys want to register to be VIP guests, and your host will be Dr. Emily. Let me pop that up really fast, and then we'll continue our discussion.
Okay.
Let's see if I can find it. I think I closed it. That's bad. I need to go to pictures.
And so while you're looking for that, this is this is really a community that we want to invite our doctors to join, because when you come to the events, and there are several events a year, and in October I'm actually going to collaborate and put my event together with Achieve, and it is to bring together healthcare professionals, and like Dr. Julie said, people who help support us, whether it's in marketing, or in business growth, who help support us so that everyone can grow, because as we grow, we can help support our practice, we can do better job for our patients, we can change more life.
Certainly so.
Yeah.
Okay, I think this will let me do this now. Maybe not. We practiced this and it's not doing what there we go. Of course, right? There we go. So if you just take a picture of the QR code, it'll bring you to the information site for registering to the June conference, and we'd love to see everybody there. It's such an impactful group.
Yeah, so you can just scan that QR code, it'll give you a link, and then you can go and register as a VIP guest, and you can put my name down, just put Dr. Emily as a referral. We would love to see more doctors and healthcare practitioners, chiropractors, be at this particular conference. And like I said, it's a whole community where we'll be joining together and we'll be talking about business growth. So Dr. Julie, you've been in this group for, you say, 5 years, and just like with anything, right? It's such an honor to be one of those new members, and watch the whole group grow, and along with your growth. And when I first came to the event, and this is what we, the power of association and the power of trust. Because I share with people, when Phyllis invited me to come to the event, I just bought my ticket, got my hotel, and I got there and I go, okay, what am I doing here, right? But I was there because I trust Phyllis. I was there because we were associated with the same group before, and we know who we are, and we know what we're looking for, and we know, the integrity and the capacity of what we can be. And one of the things that was overwhelming was the amount of resources that that the community would provide. And I'll be real honest, I haven't even tapped into the resources. I've already got tremendous support from the leadership team, and from Phyllis, who have introduced me to the group. So if you can just give me an idea, as far as the resource. I know there's some coaching calls, there's some meetings. So tell us a little bit more about that, because you have actually done that, and as a new member, I haven't quite gotten into all of the resources.
Sure. I know when at least for me, when I start with a new group or a new association, even my professional association, it's a little bit like the fire hose. You have, CEs, and you have discussions, and you have networking groups, and you have all of these events just in your own practice and your own professional associations. And I think we don't necessarily tap into all of those either. So it's important to really tap into what's relevant for you at the time and not try to do everything at once. That's it. It sort of freezes you. You don't do anything if you try to do everything. And Achieve is no different. It's very broad spectrum for resources. The best part, especially when you're new, is the leaders. The leaders are there to kind of take your hand and walk you through what is available. Rob does a Achieve University, where he's introducing you to the possibilities and thinking outside the box for your own business and business growth. And then he kind of runs through, in the fire hose nature, all of the resources that he's put together in the group. And then the leaders kind of come in and go, it's going to be okay. Take a deep breath. You don't need to do everything at once. Pick one or three things. And those leaders actually become almost like a coach. So you can get on the phone with them or contact them via email, which is a great resource. Generally speaking, it's like, okay, here's what I'm working on. Which resource do I need, and which one first? And they can kind of direct you to the appropriate place in the Google Drive, or the appropriate person to talk to for that. So that's definitely like the number one resource, is that leadership. And it's always growing, and he's got leaders all across the board, different medical professionals, different business people who take different perspectives. So you can always find the leader that you resonate with. We don't always get along with everyone, so that's important to kind of have the variety. And then kind of going from the leadership into the other resources that are available. You can do everything from like the back office that he's got in there, which is your marketing materials and printing and legal contracts and that kind of thing. He's got some lawyers on hand that are happy to review contracts if you need a second set of eyes. He's got connections with all kinds of printers, or if you're making products, promotional products or that kind of thing, which is kind of a fun thing. And we forget that we need those things being business people. And even if you're working in a big corporate arena, having those resources just personally can be helpful as well. And then it goes all the way to the other end of the spectrum, where he's got programs where you can write books and you can write courses and progress through teaching other practitioners what you're doing, or a special adaptation that you've made to enhance the profession, or share a alternative perspective, so that we can start to change the industry instead of being stuck in the medical textbooks from the 1940s.
I'm gonna ask you real quick. So you just mentioned about writing books, and I can't tell you how many doctors that I talk to, and they would say, "I want to write a book. I want to write a book." And I've written a couple books myself. I collaborated with doctors and other business owners, and wrote a couple of those anthologies. And a lot of time it takes some coaching, right? And it takes a mindset shift, because sometimes people just say, "I want to write a book about my life," right? Which is great. What is it going to do for other people, right? So we're thinking more about us and not about the readers. And, like who's going to read your book? And so talk a little bit about the writing book process from your experience, please.
Sure. In that same vein, people go, "Oh yeah, I want to write a book," or someone looks at you and says, "You should write a book," and you go, "I don't have time for that," because you're running your life, you're running your practice, and a lot of times we run out of gas. So the idea of putting in the time to write a book is daunting a little bit. But when you have that guidance, when you have somebody who's created a system to make it easier, it doesn't actually take as much time as you think. The actual writing time of the book is 24 hours to 2 weeks. It's not months and months. It's about preparing appropriately so that you can distill information coming out of your head. And while we all like our own stories, right? We want to talk about ourselves and we want to write our memoirs or what have you. It's not necessarily the book that's most relevant to the audience. You share your stories when you write a book, because we all like to hear stories rather than just facts thrown at you. And in doing that, you get to share your memoir, as it were, and you actually get to write something that's relevant to the audience. So I've actually written a couple of books myself, and going through the process and having a little bit of hand holding led to a book that is about assessing yourself and what you do with the information. We tend to go, "Oh, my back hurts, I need to go see the doctor," except for which one? And do we actually need to see the doctor, or should we just be resting, or should we be stretching something, or so on? So I get to share a whole bunch of my stories and work with patients and so on, as well as actually helping people to help themselves. And then I went on to write one that was about helping practitioners get people to do their homework. It's important that people do stuff at home, dentistry, right? You can clean their teeth, you can fill their cavities, you can give them all the recommendations in the world, but if they don't go home and brush their teeth twice a day, they're going to have a problem, right? They have to do their homework.
Yes.
So in that same zone, physical therapy, you need them to do their homework. Psychology, you need them to do their homework. So I kind of, in all my years of experience, have come up with a framework that is short, easy little cheats to actually get them to invest in their healthcare and to do their stuff. And it works across the board, which is fun. And I got to tell a whole bunch of my stories again, different
Right.
ones. So
Yeah.
it's a fun experience, and having somebody hold your hand through it makes it really doable in a time frame that's relevant. So you're not writing your same book 20 years from now, and you've retired from your profession and you're not even interested in the book anymore. So
Yes.
his program is really good for that.
Yes.
And
I think what I find a lot of times when people are writing books, what they do is they want to write everything. They think that this is the only book they're going to write, right? And and it's great to have somebody ask you questions, make you think a little bit. Okay, does this book need to be 300 pages? Maybe it can be 120, and it only talk about my life, right? And then I'll write another one, 120, and it's going to talk about the techniques or what I do. So is that how you wrote your book? Because you say you've
yes,
written a couple of them.
yeah, they're both on the shorter end. We in the technological age that we have now, and all of the things that are going on, are very easily distracted. We have the attention span of a gnat. We all do, right?
Uh-huh.
I feel like I'm 5 again, and I'm going off to do different things all the time. So if you want somebody to really get relevant information, you have to chunk it down. You have to keep it simple, and people don't want to pick up and read that 300-page book unless maybe it's about dinosaurs or wizards or something. Um, but the keeping it simple, and you can write more than one book, and by making them little subsections of your knowledge base, it's super helpful. And in that same vein, if you've got a shorter book, a more simplified process, you can convert those processes in the book into a course that's easily consumed, and your information gets out there faster. And when it's simple and the courses are short, it's much easier to get CE approval, which we all need. So getting your course into the hands of more people that benefit them, one, from the knowledge, and two, they get to gain CEs from it as well. And so in the book writing process, if you're keeping it simple, keeping it short, and really concentrating on the process instead of telling your whole life story and everything you possibly know, you can convert it into a course pretty easily. And again, helping more people is the goal.
Right. Yeah. I'll share a quick story. So I wrote my first book. It's called From Refugee to Renaissance Woman, which is share my story coming to the States from communist Vietnam. And in it, I also share some, business strategies, right? And then I was working with a coach, and he said, "Okay, well, you need a book that actually outline what you teach." So I wrote the book. I sent it to him, and he said, "Where's your story?" And I said, "The story is in the first book." so, so he said, "You can't do that. You need to weave your story into the second book." So these are things that we don't know, right? Because you're the doctor of physiotherapy, and then I'm a dentist, and then we could have the chiropractor, we could have the physician. We are good in what we do. And whenever we want to grow and we extend and we do things beyond what we were educated to do, it always takes, people say it takes a village, right? But it takes the education, it takes the guidance, and the difference between that and just trying to figure it out yourself is speed. I always tell people, how fast do you want to write this book? Because if this information can be shared and help other people's lives, right? Then the faster you can do it, the better. And that's where having a community like Achieve and having the resources like writing a book would make such a big difference. Have you had the experience where you're talking to somebody and they said, "I want to do this, but like,"
Oh yes.
yeah.
I'm gonna segue back to my first book. So
Good.
the Achieve community is amazing, and the process that's in place and the coaching that you get are very relevant. I'm gonna kind of tell you a little bit of a story, and I made Rob really mad at me because I decided I was gonna write my book without him the first time,
Yeah.
and I
I just want
worked.
to add here that Rob is the founder of Achieve Community. So because we're referencing with him, but
Right,
we didn't.
right,
Okay, so
yes.
he's a founder of Achieve Community. Yes.
So anyway, he was upset with me because I decided I was going to work with some other people, and the process that they use is similar to his, which is kind of a fun discovery for me. They did a little bit less hand holding than he does, so the difference is worth it. And I worked with some marketing people, and the first book that I wrote is called Conquer Foot Pain. And people regularly come up to me and like, oh, you wrote a book? Cool. What's it called? Conquer Foot Pain. Oh, well, tell me about your foot book. And they're super excited about it. And the first words out of my mouth are, well, it's not really about feet. So the marketing people were like, you have to niche down, you have to have a specific thing. People with foot pain will pay to solve it, so they'll be engaged to buy the book. Okay, except for it's not about foot pain. So when somebody asks me about my foot book and I say it's not about foot pain, it's not really a very good marketing tool. So so talking with Rob in the community, we're actually going to recover it and retitle it, going with more of what resonates with me, because they're listening to me and not just being the big brand marketers from a publishing company. So taking stock of that and really like, okay, somebody's listening to me, and then he also has publishing experience and publishing houses that are willing to publish your thing that resonates with you instead of just the big boxes. So that was a really big discovery for me. It was like, oh, I guess I should have done this instead. And so so as I progressed through and started to think about the new version of it, actually doing the brainstorming with some of the leadership in Achieve and with some of the marketing people in Achieve, it's a community that really wants to support what resonates with you and what's going to grow your business in the way that you want to grow it. Because we can all get 7-figure businesses, but then if we're doing the stuff we don't want to do, what's the point? We're trying to get out of there as fast as possible. So using the community to make the appropriate impact has been super useful for me.
So did you have a new title already, or are you still working on
Still
that?
still working on it, still brainstorming.
Okay,
So
because I would say probably add a tagline, right?
oh, of course.
To clarify what it is, and that's all part of the coaching and the assisting, right? Is to get that clarity, because
Correct.
sometimes we think this sounds really good, and but it's not going to sell. Put it that way, right?
It's
It's
not
not
what
going to
people want.
resonate. Yes, it's not going to resonate with other people. But we just so love whatever it is that we want to share, that we need somebody to talk to us and to kind of bring us back down to reality. I think Achieve also help with coaching calls, right?
They
To
do.
help to help the members. And I think it all depends on how excuse me, how involved you want to be. So can you talk a little bit about that support?
Sure. They actually have different coaching calls 5 days a week. It might actually be even 6 now. And it's a plethora of information. We've got a book writing and course launching, marketing strategies, accountability kind of call. There's a how to be a leader and the best leader you can call. There's public speaking call. There are calls about social media and how to deal with that and what to use. There are just simply motivational accountability. Sometimes we get caught in the mud of all the things we're doing and we forget that we're trying to achieve a goal. And so there's a call that's kind of recenters you back to, what is it that you're actually trying to do, and do you actually need to do all of these things that are keeping you really busy? That's a fun, very useful call. And you can choose to be on the calls every week. You can choose to be on the calls once every 6 months. It depends on, what you're working on and what you need. And the calls are there every week, no matter what, because the community is large enough that there are different people in the calls each time. So by going, you're going to get different perspectives, and there's a facilitator to the call so that they can stay on track and stay on topic. But there's also the rest of the community, and it ends up more like being a mastermind or a discussion rather than just a training call, so that you can ask questions and bring concerns. And then you can also help the other people in there with a perspective that you have. If somebody's brainstorming the name of a course or something, and you're like, oh, actually, this is, if you just change these words, it makes more sense. So you kind of get the give and take a little bit of the community. So you're helping people as much as they're helping you. And they're at different times of the day. There are some early in the morning, some in the middle of the afternoon, some in the evening. And like I said, I think maybe somebody's doing one on Saturday now. So they're accessible depending on what your schedule is. You can still access. And there are ways to communicate, reach out via email or messenger to those call leaders. And the leader can then address your concern or your question. If you can't make the call, they're all recorded. So you have the information to go back and listen to as well. So if you were not able to make it and they did answer your question, you still get your question answered, which is super useful.
Yeah, in our conversation, we had talked a little bit about power partners, right? Where you can work with other people and we can help. And this is right along the coaching call and the mastermind setting that you say, where we can help each other promote and we can create multiple streams of income. Can you talk a little bit about that? Because I can certainly share what I do with Phyllis. that we
Sure.
we're supporting each other. But yeah, share your part.
The power partners are it's kind of a buzzword, and not everybody really knows what a power partner is. Those people are your biggest fans. Those are the people that are going to introduce you to everybody that you need to meet on the golf course, or everybody that you meet that's doing the same dentistry technique as you are, whatever the case may be. Or they're the people that are going to refer absolutely everybody they know to you for whatever service that you're doing. So you can create kind of those business partnerships where you're creating, summits or information processes or mentorships or whatever. Or you can be on the other side where you're actually just referring business back and forth. So that's kind of a fun thing. And in those calls, you can actually meet the right person for those circumstances, which is cool. And in doing that, the referrals and the business growth, it's you end up figuring out that you need different resources and you need the different opportunities and things. So stuff like this shows up. And creating those partnerships is, you have to know, like, and trust the person. And if you're showing up on the same Monday call all the time, or you're in the same mastermind, you're going to get to know them, probably like them, and trust them faster. So
Right.
it makes the growth exponentially more. And in the same vein of all the different income streams, you have those partnerships, those collaborations, and those referrals, and you have the ability to get to know other people's products. So let's pretend that Dr. Emily invented her own toothpaste. That's cool. And I've got somebody that's coming to see me who absolutely needs that. Then I have a stream of income that's created because I'm selling her product. the Achieve community is very much, the spearheaders, the inventors, the outside the box thinkers. So there are multiple avenues that you can create income, from athletic equipment to somebody's journal or food diary. You have things like insoles and socks that are may or may not be relevant for your community, depending on kind of those discussions and those relationships. It might make sense for you to get in touch with, the guy that does water filters, because you're teaching people about the nutritional components that they need, and all the stuff, the bad stuff that's in our water, and more so in some places in the world than others. And it might make sense for you to pair with him, and it becomes an income generation stream for you because you get the referral piece, and an income generation for him because he gets the referral piece. And so there's a ton of products that are available. And, as I said in the beginning, you use what's relevant to you. I wouldn't necessarily be, selling athletic equipment, but the martial art guy might. So just picking and choosing and really getting to know those other people can inform kind of the outside the box thinking of whether or not their product or even service makes sense. And then there's a whole lot of kind of affiliate programs set up where everybody actually wins. So it's a really fun way to investigate. And in those masterminds, you can come up with, oh, we need to put a water filter in this healthcare box that we're setting up, and then we need Dr. Emily's book, and we need my book, and we need somebody else's socks, and right, and we end up with this crazy combination of stuff that you would have never thought to put together, but actually it serves the patient the best. So it's kind of a fun experiment to kind of see what fits in where you're at in the moment.
Yeah, I think a lot of that comes from the community, because just like you said, if somebody just talk about water, and I mean, from a dentist point of view, I know how I can use that, but then I've also been exposed to a lot of communities before, right? Like I'm in a lot of groups. I'm used to sitting around the table and just throwing ideas at each other and see how we can help each other, although, we may not be working in the exact same industry. So being that open-minded and trusting other people, giving you the ideas to at least explore, right? And I think that's a big part is you go to, and I know everybody does this, right? You go to that Thanksgiving dinner and you listen to your family and they have all these crazy ideas about who should do business, about this and that. And sometimes they don't even own a business, right? But here you are, you put yourself in the business community where people care about you. People, a lot of them keep you accountable because they'll ask you about the last thing you share, and they want to help cross promote, so that everybody can win. That becomes very important. So what we learn, well, what I learned over the years is, I'm going to share my crazy idea with the right group of crazy people, right? The group that is actually willing to say, okay, that's not that crazy. Let's see what we can do with it. Versus, maybe your family members who are just going to shoot it down because they don't even understand whatever you're doing. So putting yourself in the right group with people of the right mindset who will challenge you, and that's one of the things I love the most is when people challenge you, so that you just take a step back and you say, okay, let me think. Is this actually the correct way to do this? And then they will help support you. If you choose to look at it a different way. So I think that the Achieve community is so multi-level. There's the executive part, there's the leadership part, there's the membership part, and you mentioned the back office with all the resources, and you've been leveraging that for so many years. Can you give me an example? And I know this is a little hard, but can you give me an example of and you can be very specific or you can be very general, but give me an example of where you were and where you are now, and if you can kind of share with us how how that came about or how you achieved that with this particular community.
So the fun part about the Achieve community is that it is multi-level, and there are all different things that you can do, from writing books and courses to, reviewing contracts. And there are people that are in the group that haven't started their business yet. They just know that they have an idea and they need some help and some accountability and some direction to make it happen. And then there are people that have been in business for, 50 years and have multiple businesses and are, exponentially further than those newbies. And it's fun to be in the midst of it. So when I first joined, I had been in business for myself for a decent amount of time. And I had a job. I didn't have a business. I just got to name the job. So all I was doing is the job that I would have been doing had I worked in a big PT facility, for instance. And as I got to know the community, I got to kind of broaden this perspective. And I've added a few of those products that I never really thought would fit in my practice because, I'm not a salesperson, I'm a medical professional. And it seems strange to me now why I would not have used some of those products with my people before, because it helps them so much more than just the service that I was doing. And I've since been, written my books, and I've written a education program, and it's in the catalog, and Achieve helps me promote it, which means that I have another dynamic to my business. I'm not just the practitioner in my job that I got to name. I actually have a business. I actually have multiple things going on, and it keeps me engaged. It keeps me interested. If we just do the same thing day in and day out, we burn out. And by having all of the different components and the accountability, those people that are going, well, you said you were going to do this, what happened with that? And it's the ability to go, oh, well, I thought that would be good, but then I started doing this other thing and that sounds better. And they kind of get you back on track, or they go, yes, that's a better idea. So it keeps you, going. And so going from just having, my practice and just doing that and not really thinking broad spectrum, the whole community has made all the difference to actually expand and have a business and have more influence. And I'm much more likely to think out of the box. So I'm more valuable in those masterminds because I have a better perspective. I have a better answer. I have, more experience listening to different practitioners talk about their people and being, ignorant to dental terms, for instance. I can give you the dialogue of your target audience instead of your doing your medical speak, because we all do that, right? We tech talk. And all the abbreviations that are in the medical world, right? Nobody knows what that means in the real world. And so by interacting with all of those people in the community, and now regularly in the community, both at the conferences and on the calls, and sometimes in a happy hour, I can actually, be more contributory, and vice versa. So their knowledge or their perspective and their language, and in order to actually expand and reach those people that we're trying to reach, we have to use their language. We can't use ours because they don't know what we're talking about. So that's been a really big improvement, is it changing my job into a business.
I think that's an awesome, I don't want to call it testimonial, but changing your job into a business, that's a big deal. And I think a lot of us, we think we have a business just because we have a storefront or we have staff and we, we have some patients coming in, so we have a business. But a lot of us don't run it as a business. We treat it as a job. And I just had my earlier interview it was just all about being a non-dentist mindset, and which is what you need to run a dental practice, right? And in
Right.
your particular case, you've grown all that with Achieve, and I think that's wonderful because you know it's we can't do any of this by ourselves, right?
We can't.
Yes, we can work with a coach, a consultant. What's better, and I'm not saying that we don't need a coach or consultant, but what's better is to have a whole community behind you, and to look forward to the time where yeah, I'm coming there, and I'm gonna see Julie, and I'm gonna see Phyllis, and I'm gonna tell them about these three things, and I'm gonna see what they have to say, right?
Right.
If we didn't meet on the weekly calls.
It's a lot like having, you know, 1,000 coaches instead of just one. And if you have a business coach or you have a life coach or you have a nutrition coach or whatever, they're just focusing on that one thing. Whereas having the entire community, you get the nurturing all the way around, right? Your whole pie, not just your business, but sometimes there are other people there and they have a cool new seminar or webinar or course or something, and it's teaching you how to show up, how to keep your energy right when you're on a phone call, or how to do these 10 martial arts poses or yoga poses that are going to actually help with digestion or and you might be experiencing some feeling meh because your guts aren't working right, or you stopped your exercise program, or what have you. And so you get your whole pie nurtured. So while we're talking about business is personal. So we have to nurture ourselves too. And having the whole community allows you to do that in a pretty big, meaningful way.
Yeah, and this happened to me when I attended my first business conference kind of thing that was not dentistry. Is you go thinking you're looking for the solution to one thing, and then you leave with five things that really you should be focusing on, right? That you didn't know that you should be looking at. And
Right.
I think that's a big advantage about going to a non-industry, non-specific industry event. Because as a dentist, I go to dental conference all the time and these meetings, and you meet your dentist friends and you talk about the same thing, right? You have the same challenge kind of thing. But when you start talking to, say, a chiropractor or a physician or a marketing friend, and they start asking you certain questions, they start asking about certain metrics that maybe you haven't been looking at because you're trying to look at the same thing as your other friends who are going through the same challenges. It
Right.
opens up new insights, um, and then you can grow much faster. Not to
You
say that you shouldn't go to your industry, but you got to kind of put your attention and be in a community where people will help you grow.
Yeah, industry is important. We need our CEs, and we do need our uh companionship of our co industry people,
Our
100%.
colleagues, right?
Of course, your
Yeah,
your your counterpart in Japan, whatever the case may be. you you
right.
you need that camaraderie, and you need the ability to tech talk sometimes, where you're talking about a particular area of the body or a particular procedure, and in order to talk about it, you need somebody else that has the same dialogue as you, for sure. Very important. But Achieve is unique in that we have so many people from all across different industries. And it started out with the health industries. And then we figured out that we needed those adjunct people. Who wants to do their own books? Nobody. You don't have time for that. And that's not what you should be doing. You should be practicing your dentistry or practicing your chiropractic craft. And when you have a group like this, you do get that outside the box. You do get the different dialogue. You do get people going, oh, did you ever think about it like this? Or did you consider, and are you tracking? And, have you heard of this app or this, facility or this education or whatever it is? And, you're going, that's perfect. That's exactly what I needed, but I didn't know I needed it. For sure.
Right, right, exactly. And that, like I said, that comes from the questions of the people who are not in the same field, right? Because when they ask you those questions, you realize that you haven't you haven't looked at that, right? And I know we have the summit coming up. Is in June. I think it's June
June.
10 to 11. And thank you so much for coming on and sharing some of that experience, because I wanted our professional communities, our physician, chiropractor, optometrist, from the dental friends, to hear it from somebody, not from me, right? Because I'm in there, but hear it from another person, from another source, right? And the experience, and it doesn't have to be a doctor, right? It could be any business who are in that community, who come to grow and to
Mhm.
contribute. And because sometimes, like, and I know we all know this, you might be talking to a patient, and maybe that patient may not need whatever exact thing that you want to promote, but that person knows someone who knows someone, right? So it's
Right.
more about growing that community and getting in front of people, so people can all know and support you. I know you had shared that QR code earlier. Do you mind just sharing it one
Mhm.
more time?
Sure, I
So
can do that.
people, yeah, people can just scan that, and they can join the summit for free. They can
There we
come
go.
as there we go. So there's a QR code. They can scan that. They can join as a VIP guest. They can put down Dr. Emily as a referral person, and we would love to see you there. Just why? Because I know that we can all grow. And that's really my thing. I have friends that I have literally dragged to to some of these conferences, and by the time they get there, they are, well, I should have come earlier. And I said, yes, I've only been talking to you about this for about, 4 years or whatever. The first time I went and I realized, hey, this is something different, I have already told you, right?
Yeah.
One of my dentist friends, he works on several things, and he could name. I started doing this because you told me to come to this, and I started doing that because you told me to come to that. And I said, yes, because that's kind of one of our nature. When we grow, we like for everybody to grow with us, right?
We
is
do.
is
We
that
do.
is that is that community mindset that is just, it's not about one thing, it's not about one industry. It's about serving. And if we can serve our patients better, then we can go home and take care of our family better, we can take care of ourselves better, and we can all grow together. So if
And as much as we bring business associates to these, I've brought patients to them too. And it opens their eyes to what other practitioners are around. And it often makes them even more compliant with you. They're even a bigger fan of you, which can help you in another way to grow the business. So it's a cool multi-dimensional situation for sure. And definitely would love to meet some people from this at the June conference.
yeah, that and I'm sure you will. I'm sure you will, because I think you've shared a lot of the information. You've shared a lot of the benefits, and there's no risk in coming and meeting us, and growing the association, like I like to call it, right? Of people who are like-minded, people who want to grow business, and they don't even need to be in the same industry, right? Like, I remember the first time I went to this conference, this other conference, and that was like 8 years ago. And I would post on Facebook. I say, I went to this conference to escape dentistry, and who do I see? Other other dentists, you know.
Of course.
And we always find each other. Just funny, but the setting is different, right? The setting
Right.
is about business growth. The setting is not about learning one more technique, adapting one more technology to improve your practice. And it usually is the practice, the technical part of it, right? And when you go to these other conferences that is not industry specific, what you see is you see what other people are doing outside of your industry, and they being successful. So the, the very minimal thing is to at least take a look at that and say, hey, it's working in chiropractic, it's working in physical therapy, it's working in, with the nutritional people. Well, how come I can't adapt that, or maybe even if I bring in a product and I can grow my practice that way.
Right.
So if somebody is on the fence and they're thinking, well, do I really want to go and spend 2 days in Colorado? It shouldn't be cold by then.
No, it
I'm
should be
coming.
nice by then, hopefully.
I'm coming
It
from
is
California.
unpredictable.
If somebody is thinking about this, what would you say to them? To just pull the trigger. But what would you say?
The Achieve community is super beneficial and super motivated, and all the things we've been talking about with all the resources there. It's also a family and they like to have fun. So the whole conference, while it's beneficial and you can learn a lot and be exposed to a bunch of people, it's going to be fun. The speakers that they bring in are just wonderful, great, and often, are standing around in the auditorium joking with everybody. They're coming to the happy hours. They're participating, and they get caught up in the camaraderie of all the people, because it is actually treated a lot like a family. It's super fun group of people. And even if you're not real sure if business wise it's good, it's a good refresher. It's a good break from everything, and it's a different way to play and have fun. And fingers
Yeah.
crossed the weather will be good.
Well, I would personally guarantee, right, that it is gonna make a difference in your business if you come with an open mind. Because sometimes when people go and if they think, and it may take a day for you to kind of open up, but sometimes what people think is, what am I doing here with all of these other people who are not dentists or who are not physicians or who are not chiropractors, whichever industry you're in, right? Um, that's exactly where you should be. You should be in the company of other people so you can see other things and you can grow your business that way. So I would call that, personally, for me, I would call it as a challenge. I challenge you to go and grow and just put yourself in that sort of uncomfortable environment, because now you're not surrounding by your other dentists, by familiar faces,
Your
right?
comfort, yeah.
Yeah, your comfort. Take yourself out of that comfort zone, and come and join us in June.
Somebody once told me a long time ago, in that open-minded zone, if you uncross your arms, you might learn something. So getting out of your comfort zone and getting out of your traditional conferences and your traditional community may be a good opportunity for you to uncross your arms and learn something.
Yeah, and I think and I think when you're sometimes also putting yourself even in a different environment, not just a different people, but it's a different environment, because your conference is not, it's big enough where there are people from different industry and there are a lot of people, but it's small enough where it still is a family and a community, right? We're not walking through hallways of you know vendors and spending time on that. We actually are in the room, or like you said, happy hour, drinking cranberry juice, right?
Of
And
course.
sitting around, yeah, and sitting around the table and sharing stories and sharing experience. It's been great to have you on here, Dr. Julie. Any last advice for our attendees this morning?
I just encourage people to, think outside the box and ask people you wouldn't normally think would have an answer. Whatever your question is, whatever you're working on, and you might be surprised at what you hear. And I would recommend this community to everybody. So hopefully we'll see you in June.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for joining us today. Thank you, Dr. Julie, for spending the precious time to share your experience and your insights about having a community to back you up and for you to grow. And I thank you to all the everyone watching across the world. Somebody was putting in the chat, they're watching from New York, and that's wonderful, because that's what we want. We want to provide resources. We want to help you look at things differently, which is why we're launching the Doctorate of Business Administration program, to provide you with a lot of these insights, a lot of these resources, as a continuing education program. And so you can learn at your own pace because it's online. And then you can always go to these meetings that are live, that are in person, and then have the weekly support like Dr. Julie mentioned. So I hope everybody have a great rest of your weekend. And if you're in America, you probably have Monday off, so it's a long weekend. And stay safe and have the most productive week next week. And thank you, Dr. Julie.
Thanks, Dr. Emily. Have a great weekend.
Yes.